Hey there. I am so excited about today's episode. Today is my 50th episode. And let me tell you, podcasts out here aren't lasting beyond 10 episodes on average. So I'm very excited to record this episode today. And I'm going to be covering Fashion Week. So we're going to talk about 50 things about Fashion Week. And who's counting? It may be a little bit more, but anywho, I want to dive into this episode and I want you to celebrate along with me for 50 episodes. Send me a message. Let me know what did you like about this particular episode, or what has been your most favorite episode over the 50 episodes I've recorded thus far. I look forward to hearing from you. Just contact me on Instagram at Marketing EdVenture, or you can send me an email at jwalker@marketingedventure.com. All the information will be in the show notes for the various ways that you can reach out to me. I look forward to hearing from you. So let's go. You're listening to Marketing EdVenture, the hub for business, fashion, marketing, and other CTE educators who integrate marketing into the learning experience. I'm your host, Jackie Walker. Each week, I'll cover marketing education concepts, strategies, tips, trends, frameworks, and other information to equip you to connect your classroom to digital natives while cultivating an engaged learning environment. So come on into the room where your favorite beverage, snacks, and even your cell phone are all welcome. As we dive into this 50th episode, I'm going to cover the big four fashion capitals of the world. Okay, so first we're going to start off with New York. We're going to go in the order in which they are presented during this time of fashion weeks. So New York is going to be first, London is second, Milan is third, and then we'll wrap it up with Paris. So let's get to talking about Fashion Week. Now, if you've been here for a little while, you'll know that back in episode 19, I actually did a really good walkthrough about Fashion Week, how it began, all these interesting things about Fashion Week, where they're held, some key facts and things of that nature. So that was really like a high level overview of Fashion Week, introducing it to you as my whole series about working up to, fashion show production and everything. But what we're going to be talking about today are some facts and some details and some interesting things that maybe you don't know about Fashion Week in each major area, because New York Fashion Week is different from London, is different from Milan, and is different from Paris. They all have their uniqueness. So let's dive into New York. Now, if you don't know by now, Eleanor Lambert is the person who created Fashion Week. And when we get to Paris, you're going to find out a little bit of an interesting fact about Eleanor Lambert. But let's stay with New York for right now. So in 1943, Eleanor came up with the whole idea and concept of Fashion Week. It was started based on World War II coming about and not being able to travel to France, where all of the fashion was happening. So she decided to spotlight American designers, because American designers were pretty much in the shadow of the French designers. So she decided to spotlight the designers, send messages out to all of the press, because she was a publicist herself. But she was like the first publicist to really cover fashion. And so she sent messages out to the press to get them to come to this showcase of fashion. And out of the 150 or so people that she sent an invitation to, only about 50 of them showed up. But that's okay. because she is known as the person who spearheaded the beginning of fashion weeks. Now, as a side note, there was fashion going on prior to that. There were different things that were happening to showcase fashion. As a matter of fact, in August of 1914, the Vogue editor in chief put together a somewhat of a show of fashion, and this was based really like a charity show. So that could be considered like the beginning of showcasing fashion in a way to bring attention to it from the public, from the community, as a way of spotlighting fashion. Let's get into some interesting or just some facts about New York Fashion Week. It's held in Manhattan. That is the location in New York. Of course, that is the fashion capital of the United States. And it usually lasts about 7 to 9 business days. Now, Fashion Week can bring in over 230,000 visitors to that area. And there are more than like 300 shows going on. There are shows going on all over the city and beyond in the outskirt areas as well. And as far as, what this does for the American economy, people don't think much of fashion, even though we wear fashion every single day. But people don't really give a lot of attention to like how much this particular industry is generating income. Fashion Week alone brings in over $900 million. 1 week. $900 million. That says a lot for the importance of fashion and how people really value it. Now, if you're keeping up with me, that is 6 things that I've shared already just about New York. And you're going to find that I'm probably going to share a little bit more about New York and London, more than I'm going to share about Milan and Paris. Why, you say? Well, there's a lot to be said about New York because honestly, Fashion Week originated out of New York. So let's go ahead and talk about this. All right, let's get into the branding of Fashion Week. Now, it used to be called Press Week. That was when it first started. It was called Fashion Press Week. So the reason why it was called Fashion Press Week is because press from all over the United States would come to New York to see the fashion and report on it. Around 1993, Eleanor, who created the Council of Fashion Designers of America, decided, the council itself, they decided to change the name from Press Week into a more organized and central event that would be called 7th on 6th. This event changed its location to Bryant Park, and it really became a central place for the event for years to come. And the council, CFDA, as they like to call it, had over 500 members. So this has really become a central part of the U.S. fashion industry. For many years, Fashion Week kept the name 7th on 6th until Mercedes-Benz took over the sponsorship of the event and it became known as Mercedes Fashion Week. Now, if you go back to episode 19, I run through like the different names and iterations of New York Fashion Week, so you can find a little bit more detail. But I just want to make note here that in 2007, it became Mercedes Benz Fashion Week. And then in 2015, it underwent another rebranding and became officially known as New York Fashion Week. Okay, so now that we've talked about the branding of New York Fashion Week, let's talk about some of the notable designers that showcase at New York Fashion Week. So some of the key designers that have showcased at New York Fashion Week are Halston, Oscar de la Renta, and Calvin Klein. Now, Tom Brown has also been a big designer that is showcased during the New York Fashion Week. As a matter of fact, he debuted his first collection in 2005 and challenged what masculinity in fashion really is. It was met with a little bit of controversy, but fashion is what fashion is. And nobody can really dictate what is considered to be fashion. So over time, the envelope was pushed and it opened the doors for men's fashion to explore areas that it never had before. Now, even though designers were presenting menswear at Fashion Week, it wasn't until about 2015 when menswear got their own spotlight and had their specific showcase dedicated to menswear. Now, over the years, it's gone back and forth whether they would focus on men or not. That went back and forth, and eventually, after 2021, there was no more men's fashion week at New York. Although you will find menswear on showcase. There just is not a specific focus on having a menswear showcase. Alongside women's wear, menswear, you will find accessories and children's wear showcased at the New York Fashion Week. Now, with all the excitement that happens with New York Fashion Week, of course, you have your celebrities, you have your influencers, you have everyone who shows up. So they've begun to experience a little bit with selling tickets to New York Fashion Week to the public, or doing events and gifting and seeing, what kind of experience can be created with New York Fashion Week that doesn't just involve celebrities or influencers, but also allowing some of the people from the outside to come in and enjoy this particular experience. They have packages that include first row seating, welcoming cocktails, and other special events that could be included in a ticket price of around $3,000. Now, a little known fact is that celebrities actually are paid, not all, but can be paid up to about $100,000 to appear at a fashion show. And even some of the reality stars can be paid up to around $5,000 to make an appearance at a fashion show. This is big because it goes to show the influence of celebrity and influencers on the general market of people. Of course, since 2020, there have been so many changes to the industry in the way a lot of industries operate. And fashion is no different. Fashion Week is no different. So you will notice that there is a large uptick in fashion week shows being broadcast on social media, YouTube, and on websites. So with that, New York Fashion Week has a very large online audience. So that really opens up the fashion world, not just to those exclusive celebrities and influencers, but also to the everyday person. I know this year I have watched a lot of fashion shows on YouTube and on Instagram. If you've been counting, I have given you 17 facts about New York Fashion Week. Now, not being biased or anything, but this is probably the largest amount of information you're going to receive about all the fashion weeks, inclusive of all the fashion weeks. So stay tuned. Let's continue. Next is London. Hey, adventurous educator. I just want to take a quick break to ask, is this your first time teaching fashion marketing, or do you need a boost in your curriculum? Well, look no further. I have the Ultimate Fashion Marketing Class Bundle. It's packed with 4 vibrant presentations, fun and engaging activities, quizzes, and 4 major projects for an immersive semester of fashion exploration. And it comes with a pacing guide for an 18-week semester. Additionally, each assignment has detailed student instructions and suggested pacing times so that you can tailor the time frame to fit your teaching schedule. For more information about this must-have bundle, go to marketingedventure.com and search Ultimate Fashion Marketing Class Bundle, or simply click the link in the show notes. Now back to the show. Now, if you've ever watched a London Fashion Week, it may leave you thinking like, what did I just watch? I've seen a few of those. Last year I did run across a few of those, and I'm like, London is different. But let's talk about London. Now, London really didn't organize their fashion weeks until about 1984. So they were the last of the big 4 to become a part of this special union. London Fashion Week is organized by the British Fashion Council and has a little over 220 members as a part of that council. Just talking about what the fashion industry does for the economy of London. Just this year, in 2024, it was recognized by the London Stock Exchange, and they allowed them to kick off Fashion Week at the London Stock Exchange. And that really signified the UK's recognition of what Fashion Week does for the London economy. As a matter of fact, over the last 40 years, Fashion Week in London has brought in more than 900,000 jobs, and it contributes billions of dollars to the UK economy. So you remember I was talking about how London is different? Well, let's talk about some of the designers. Marc Jacobs is one of them, and he really changed the industry by creating that grunge look. That was back in 1987, and it really took off. And he also inspired avant-garde designs that really the fashion industry had not seen before. And that really helped to spur on the punk rock era. Y'all remember those days? And then in the 1990s, it became really this extravagant, theatrical environment with designers such as Alexander McQueen. Those designers really helped, bring out the um, what you see today in London Fashion Week. And London is kind of like a pioneer in the industry, especially with Burberry. Around 1916, they pioneered like the runway to retail concept. So the things that showcased on the runway were immediately available for purchase. Now, generally, when things show on the runway, they're not ready for purchase for months. But they changed that concept. So when they had a fashion show, buyers could immediately purchase those items and be wearing them the next day. So that really changed the whole environment of Fashion Week and presentation of your merchandise and it being readily available for the consumer. That really took things to new heights. Now, as far as venues as to where a lot of these fashion shows are held, the National History Museum was a place that was frequently used to present London Fashion Week. Then in the early 2000s, it returned to the Duke of York headquarters on King's Road. And then it eventually returned to Battersea Park. Now, due to all of the changing and switching of venues, it just really turned into sort of a hybrid kind of event. London Fashion Week adopted an approach as to where there were no particular vendors that would be the main venue. It would then just be a hybrid situation in which there were fashion shows online and fashion shows held at various locations. Now let's talk about some interesting facts about London Fashion Week and surrounding London Fashion Week. So after London Fashion Week, there is a event called London Fashion Week Festival. It takes place immediately after London Fashion Week. And this event is open to the general public. London Fashion Week is a supporter of a program that's called New Gen, and this focuses on new talent in the fashion industry. Now, I'm not a coffee lover, although I've learned to adjust my palate to coffee these days. But during Fashion Week, over 200 kilograms of Lavazza coffee beans are used to make a whopping 30,000 espressos. These are for those working and visiting the event. Now, due to all of the protest about using fur in fashion, in 2018, London was the first to not use any fur in any of their shows. So they are a leader in that respect. Now, because London no longer has like a centralized place where they host their fashion shows and the fashion shows are all over the place, VIPs are chauffeured more than 32,000 miles during the time frame in which London hosts their fashion week. If you're keeping up with the numbers, that was 16 things about London. So together with London and New York, we're already at 33 facts about Fashion Week. So next is Milan. Let's go. Now, moving into Milan. Now, Milan was the third of the big four to join this union of the fashion capitals of the world with Fashion Week. Interesting to note about Milan is that its name came from an English word, milliner, and that means fine wares. So we have a little bit of English American in Milan. And if you notice, the American influence is in several of these other capitals, fashion capitals. Now, this happened in the 1500s. In the 1800s, Milan became known for its fabrics, its attention to detail, its craftsmanship, and its just quality work. Now, before Milan Fashion Week, there was Italian Fashion Week, and that occurred in 1951 in Florence, Italy. The Milan Fashion Week came around in 1958, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to have to read it because the name is difficult for me, but the council that oversees Milan Fashion Week is called Camera Nazionale della Moda Italiana, and there are over 200 companies that make up that council. In the 1960s, the Roman catwalks were noticed due to high fashion being promoted through films. And then in the 1970s, some very popular stylists, decided to leave the catwalk and of high fashion, that is, and start pret-a-porter, which stands for ready to wear. And so that became a very big part of the Milan Fashion Week. So you have your haute couture, which is high fashion, and your pret-a-porter, which is your ready to wear. So then Milan became known as having what they called workable fashion. And not only did Milan become known for the pret-a-porter, but they also became a training ground for a lot of the fashion photographers and campaign creators. And big textile companies took note of them. They started approaching the big names in the industry like Versace and Armani. A little known fact is that Milan in 2009 became known as the fashion capital of the world. I know we always think about Paris, and sometimes we probably put New York up there, but Milan came to the top of the list starting back in 2009. And then in 2019, it really became home to some of the big names like Dolce & Gabbana, Armani, Bottega Veneta, Etro, and so many more designers. As for the venues as to where Milan Fashion Week is held, it is three main locations. One of them, I will tell you, is Leonardo da Vinci National Museum of Science and Technology. However, the other two are Italian names and I don't want to butcher them. So look at the resources that will be linked in my show notes to see the other two names of the other venues. And they also open it up to the public as well. That information will be in my show notes because I don't want to do any injustice to these names because they're Italian and very hard to pronounce. Now, the fashion shows or fashion weeks were held for men and women for their spring and summer collection in September and June, respectively. And then for the fall and winter, they have the women's in February and the men in January. Now, among the famous designers, as I mentioned before, are Dolce & Gabbana, like Gucci and Prada. They have their own shows separate from the venues of Milan Fashion Week, but you have a host of other designers, Cavalli, Versace, Armani, Bassani. So it's so many that come out of Milan. Now, if you're taking notes, that was 10 facts about Milan Fashion Week. So that puts us at roughly like 43, I believe. Now, let's roll on into Paris. This is going to be our last area that we're going to cover for Fashion Week, and I know you're excited to hear about it. So, let's go. Now, Paris has another name for Fashion Week. It's called Semaine de la Mode de Paris, and I'm pretty sure there's accents that should be there somewhere, but that is another way that Fashion Week is referred to in Paris. Now, let me tell you, Paris did not start Fashion Week. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? It's the fashion capital of the world. But no, actually, Fashion Week, we're going to get to that in a moment. But let me tell you, the father of haute couture and fashion in Paris is a guy by the name of Charles Frederick Worth. He is an American that went to Paris in 1858. Well, he went there in 1840 something, but in 1858, he created what we now know as the model. Get that. He's in Paris. He's from America. He is American, and he created what we now know as the model. The catwalk concept did not come out until the 70s. You would think with fashion being around for so long that there was always runway, there was always a catwalk, but no, it really didn't come out and become popularized until the 70s at Paris Fashion Week. And with so many other countries and cities, the economy is definitely boosted by Paris Fashion Week. It brings in nearly 4 million euros annually. Now, I don't know the exact equation for converting a euro to US dollars, but that's a lot. And the week that is dedicated to haute couture generates about 10 billion euros in annual commercial transactions. That is a lot of money. Now, fashion in Paris did begin with the Fashion Week, of course. So the group, the council that came together to monitor and kind of organize fashion in Paris came about in 1868, and it is called the Chambre Syndicale de la Couture. Again, forgive the accent, but this council consists of about 100 members in 3 different chambers. Now, let's get to the date when Fashion Week actually happened in Paris. It was in 1973, and it was the first organized Fashion Week in Paris. And little known fact, but Eleanor Lambert, the one who created Fashion Week in New York, actually brought Fashion Week to Paris when she challenged, or maybe challenge is a strong word, when she collaborated with Paris to do what is called the Battle of Versailles. And this battle was to showcase American designers against French designers. And it was also to raise money to restore that historic building. One of the most historic things that happened during this Battle of Versailles, besides the actual event itself, was that the American designers used 10 African American models, which had never been done before. As far as Fashion Week is concerned in Paris, there are 3 different areas that are focused on. You have your pret-a-porter, which is your ready-to-wear. You have your haute couture, which is high fashion. And then you have menswear. Now, some really big designer names that are focused for Paris are Chanel, Dior, Louis Vuitton, Givenchy, and Saint Laurent. And just as a side note, up until 1984, the fashion shows were private until Thierry Mugler came along and decided to open up his fashion show to the public. So now you have a lot of shows that are now open for the public to attend. Now, to wrap up Paris Fashion Week, I know already, yes, already. The venues in which Paris Fashion Week generally happens is 3 different venues. You have the Grand Palais, the Palais de Tokyo, and the infamous Louvre. So there you have it. The big 4 fashion weeks covered in 50 interesting facts. Actually, more than 50, because with Paris, we ended up doing about maybe 10. So that put us over 50. But I enjoyed researching the big 4 fashion weeks for my 50th episode. And I hope that you learned a lot during this time together. Be sure to check out the link in my show notes, because I will have the notes from this, because I know it was a lot, but I would love for you to have all the interesting facts about Fashion Week. You can take this and share it with your students and make a big project out of it. As a matter of fact, I do have a project that's called the Big 4 Fashion Week, so I'll also link that in my notes as well. I do thank you for joining me here at Marketing EdVenture with Jackie, and I hope that you have a wonderfully blessed day. Thanks for listening to Marketing EdVenture. Remember to subscribe, rate, review, and share this episode with someone you think would benefit from the information shared here today. If you have any questions or want to connect with me, find me on Instagram at Marketing EdVenture. All links and resources discussed in this episode can be found in the show notes at marketingedventure.com.